So before we start with our presentation, uh, let me, the normal tradition, give you some housekeeping rules and some announcements. So hello everyone again. Welcome to the Modern Midwest Mobility Webinar Series, also known as MCube or M3, hosted by the University of Kansas Transportation Center. I am Nikila or Nikki from KUTC, and I'll be today's webinar moderator. Before we start with today's webinar on Introduction to the Waze for Cities program, I would like to mention a few things. So meanwhile, before we start, please feel free to post your names and your company name in the chat box to see if your friends are here, because we are in the webinar mode. And again, thank you so much for your time and for being here with us today. And then also please remember to use the chat option or the Q&A feature if you have any questions during and after the presentation. And for some reason, if you are disconnected, please try logging in again or email me. I'll be putting my information in the chat box in a moment. And few other upcoming announcements that we have is tomorrow, which is Jan 21st at 11 a.m. we are hosting our TAP webinar, where speakers will share tips for tackling the triennial review process. This is mainly for the public agencies who are on this webinar today, and I'll be posting the link in a moment again. And the next exciting topic and announcement is that next month on February 17th at 1 p.m. as a part of this M3 webinar, we have an exciting topic, which is Kansas Vision on the Future of Transportation, present by Kip Strauss from HNTB and Mike Floberg from KDOT, as they dive into KDOT initiatives to bring the advancement of emerging technology solutions to the state. Specifically, this webinar will examine the Kansas statewide connected and autonomous vehicle plan, vision plan, a requirement to leverage opportunities of transforming safety, economy, and personal mobility around Kansas. I'll be posting the link in the chat, and look out for the emails to register for this webinar. So finally coming to today's webinar. What is Waze? Wait, it's not me who will tell you what it is. For that, we have Andrew Stover from Waze to get this presentation started. Before that, I would like to give you a little and quick background information on Andrew here. Andrew Stover has worked across sectors in transportation, leading teams to move people and ideas. Currently, Andrew leads public partnerships and carpool program design for Waze. He helps public agencies across the globe to get the most from the Waze for Cities program and works with partners to celebrate the adoption of Waze Carpool to meet transportation demand management, climate, and transportation equity goals. Before joining Waze, Andrew served as the Vice President for Planning and Economic Development for Philadelphia's University City District. Previously, he served as the Chief of Staff for Philadelphia's Mayor's Office of Transportation and Utilities, where he worked closely with the Street Department, Philadelphia Water Department, and Philadelphia International Airport to plan and manage multi-billion-dollar operating and capital budgets. He led the launch of Philadelphia's Indigo Bike program, reestablished a city energy office, and raised resources to improve transportation infrastructure. Andrew has a Bachelor of Science in Transportation Management from Northeastern University and a Master's in Public Policy from Harvard Kennedy School. Welcome, Andrew. We are so happy to have you here, and the floor is all yours.
I'm really glad to be here. I know we have a number of Waze for Cities partners who are already on this call, and really excited to see representation from such a diverse group of jurisdictions. I saw some MPOs and cities and towns and counties there.
And quickly, on that note, we can launch a poll to see where people are from, what companies they're from. Yeah?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So everyone on the call, please, I'm gonna launch the poll in a moment. There we go. Just let us know what kind of entity you're from. And based on that, Andrew can give like amazing examples. And okay, 86% participated. 5 more seconds. 88%, that's good. Awesome. Let's end the poll and see, share the results. There we go.
Great.
Can you guys see my screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we have 75% from the public.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So let me start off by just talking, a little bit about the ways that you are all probably familiar with, the ways that hopefully many of you use to help get around. This navigation app known for having the best real-time information of all of the navigation apps out there. We have over 140 million monthly active users. They're globally driving 16 billion kilometers a month, pretty much globally back up to pre-pandemic levels of driving. Obviously, that varies depending on where you are in the world, but we are certainly seeing a car-led, driving-led recovery. And something that folks are very familiar with Waze is all the user-generated content. So when you're driving with Waze, you can say, and this is about to set off my phones, "Hey Google, report a crash." "Hey Google, report a pothole," and it'll get reported on Waze. Or you can have a passenger in your car tap that information in for you as well. But what a lot of people don't know about, and we generate, as you can see there, almost 20 million hazard reports a month, is that we have 30,000 active map editor volunteers. Those are folks who've volunteered to help edit the map in the last year. If you use Waze, you can edit the map within a half a mile of where you've driven. And if you start engaging in our map editor community and become one of those volunteers, you actually help fix the map. You help correct it. You work very closely with public partners to make sure that the information that's on the map is current and correct. Was just on an email exchange with one of our map editors and Virginia DOT, who's changing the configuration of an interchange tomorrow, and that's going to be live and accurate first thing on Waze because they've worked very closely with one of our map editors. And we operate in 185 countries around the world, and of course it's completely free for users. What a lot of folks don't know about Waze and what we are become and are becoming is that we're much more of a mobility platform that helps people move and helps communities improve transportation. So we have over 1,000 data sharing partners. That's a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. We have a crisis program that helps communities during times of crisis make sure that information on the map is accurate and we're directing people where they need to go. We'll talk about that. We have a beacons program that brings GPS to areas in tunnels, underpasses, other kinds of areas that might have GPS issues. And we've launched a carpooling program in 4 countries, the US, Brazil, Mexico, and Israel. That's really a pure carpool matching product. And we've been doing this for a long time now. Over 6 years, we've had a public partnership program. And it's really based on this idea that if we bring together our users, public sector organizations, private sector companies, and the community of members that we have, we can address mobility challenges globally. And it comes, our experience at Waze, how it started as a community-generated app that sort of stumbled into the fact that it was a great advertising platform for brick and mortar businesses, was that when we come together and use technology, we can really develop great mobility solutions. One of the favorite parts of my job is that I get to work with cities all over the world. It's very common that I'm talking to folks on 2 or 3 continents in any given day. And what we hear from all of our partners globally is that they have the same set of challenges and the very similar goals, right? So how do they address the number of cars on the road, and particularly in urban areas and suburban areas, traffic and congestion? How do they meet sustainability goals that they have, and how do they ensure that they're resilient to the increasing climate challenges that we're all facing? How do they reduce injuries and deaths for all road users, whether they're on bikes, on transit, walking, or driving? And how do they ensure that their residents have access to the mobility options and economic opportunity that they all deserve? core to our program is data sharing, and some of the partners who are on the call today are probably, are very familiar with this. We've been at this data sharing now for 6 years, and I'm going to talk about not just what we offer, but what some of the impact has been. So we have those 18.5 million reports that are coming in every month from our users. Reports of crashes, reports of various kinds of hazards on the road, reports of construction and potholes, roadkill, stopped vehicles, missing signs, all sorts of different kinds of reports, flooded roads, snow-covered roads. So we have all that user-generated data that's coming in. Plus, we're also producing algorithmic data that's identifying changes in speed, unusual traffic events. So we have that as well. And we share all of that every 2 minutes with our partners. So they have that data stream that's coming in. They can integrate it with Esri. They can store that data. They can look at it live in their TMC. They can filter out just what data is relevant to them. So it's an incredible data stream that they have available of what's for both planning and operational purposes. So what's happening in real time on the road, and then also an opportunity to look retrospectively at that data. What we ask our public sector partners to provide us is the information that they uniquely have. What are the planned street closures? What are the real-time emergency road closures or changes to configuration that are occurring? And an opportunity to push to our drivers alerts about major events. The interstate that's going to be closed overnight for a bridge replacement or a major project. The marathon that's going to close lots of streets in your city. We can get all of that data into Waze. We can alert drivers about it, make sure we're navigating them away from that, and even shift their trip times if they know ahead that there are going to be major disruptions. We also let you, if you're a Waze for Cities partner, go back and look at data going back to 2019 that we've stored on Google Cloud. So you have access to a terabyte of free storage. If you're already a Google Cloud customer, you can work with the engineers that you work with and store even more of that data. But you don't even have to be a Google Cloud customer to get that terabyte of data storage. We have a bunch of dashboards that are set up so you can look at and analyze the data that we have available. This was a project that was done in Recife, Brazil, where they used our crash data to map their high crash corridors. We also have, for our partners who share data with us, a unique opportunity to reach drivers in their jurisdiction with road safety messages. So probably not surprisingly to the people on this call, it really doesn't matter if you're in Madrid or Mexico City or Chicago or Kansas City. The road safety challenges that you're facing are very common, and you want to be sending messages to drivers in your area to remind them of key safety issues, making sure that they wear a seatbelt, looking out for pedestrians and people walking when you're making a left-hand turn or when you're driving on the other side of the road, a right-hand turn, warning people not to speed and reminding people about that, generally yielding to people walking and biking, and being especially careful in work zones. So we have these safety messages. If you share data with us, every quarter you can push out one of these safety messages to drivers in your jurisdiction. They'll see it at least twice during every month during that quarter. And it appears for them, if you use Waze, you're probably familiar, when you're stopped for more than 10 seconds, an ad will appear. This essentially appears in that ad area. And as soon as you start moving, it disappears on you. There's a key opportunity to remind drivers while they're driving of an important safety message and can reinforce other campaigns that you might have going on at that same time. So our data, as I mentioned, has been used in lots of different ways for both planning and operations, and particularly for safety, which we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive on. Boston helped use it to do traffic signal timing updates. There's some great examples of the Waze data being particularly valuable to be able to do very kind of like quick and dirty instant results, instant ability to be able to measure what are the impacts of signal timing changes that you might be doing or configuration changes that you might be doing. You know, it's not going to replace a full-blown engineering study, but it can give you some real data about what's going on when changes are occurring. In Rio, they used it for planning in advance of the Olympics that they hosted there. Helped actually use it for some of routing efforts for their garbage collection. DC helped augmented their 311 reports of potholes with Waze pothole reports. We have a number of cities that have done that really want to be proactive about addressing those kinds of street defects. You can pull that data out of Waze. But what excites me most as a transportation professional is how our data has been used to help improve safety. So we collect from our users reports of crashes. You get a time and a latitude and a longitude, and our users' perception of if that crash was major or minor. And really what you see, and there are a number of academic studies that have looked at our crash data, is it's an incredibly valuable source of non-reportable traffic incidents. Because our users see them happening on the road. They may not get reported to police. They may not have a level of damage or an injury that makes them reportable to the state, but it's still a crash that occurred on the road. And as the people on this call know very well, right, a change of just a few seconds could have very much made that a reportable incident. And so it gives you our data on crashes and other areas. It's one more piece of the puzzle to give you a clearer view of what's going on in your community. We've seen it also used in a variety of different ways. So we've seen it used at the macro level. The Inter-American Development Bank has used our traffic data to help monitor economic activity during COVID in cities across Latin America. A very exciting project with Norfolk, Virginia, which experiences a lot of clear day flooding. They are, literally on the front lines of sea level rise, where they were able to use the historic reports that Waze users have entered about flooded roads, and use that to both validate and train a predictive model of where flooding will occur based on ground saturation, wind, and tide, and predict where flooding is going to happen. And those predictions are now being fed back to Waze users, warning them of flooded roads ahead. It's a particular challenge in a place like Norfolk. It can be a beautiful sunny day, and within a 10-minute period, a road can go from dry to under 2 or 3 feet of water. And so making sure that drivers stay out of those hazards is very important to them, and obviously great for our users. And something that our partners requested, and this is another wonderful part of our partnership program, is there's a lot of opportunity for our partners to provide feedback on how to improve our product. We've been able to add railroad crossings all across the United States to help people alert themselves to when they're coming up to those, and we've done it on a global scale as well, across Australia and France and the UK and a number of other countries. In terms of guiding real-time operations, Virginia is a leader in using Waze for Cities data. It's particularly useful at the state DOT level to help give you visibility into what's going on your roads where you don't have CCTV cameras, where you might not have loops in the road. And you can then see from the Waze data that's coming in from our users what's happening on that road, what events are occurring on that road, what the average speed is on that road. And when it comes to crashes and disabled vehicles, the I-95 Corridor Coalition, now the Eastern Transportation Coalition, you see Irvine, a number of others have done studies that have looked at when does a crash get reported to Waze versus when does the first report come in to emergency services, or for a disabled vehicle maybe come into a TMC. And the average reporting time on Waze is 3 or 4 minutes before for a crash and can be up to, a quarter of an hour before for a disabled vehicle. So it can be a great tool for deploying first responders, deploying support vehicles, and giving you visibility as to what's going on out there. At the Volpe Center at USDOT, they have been collecting and storing our data for almost 5 years now for the entire United States for every 2 minutes. So that means the Waze data for your jurisdiction is being held by USDOT at the Volpe Center, and their Safety of Data initiative, I'm sure, be really interested in working with you if you have questions that you want to answer, potentially using that Waze data. So they've done a number of projects with our data. Probably the one that might be most relevant to this audience was they helped the city of Bellevue, Washington, create a dashboard where they were able to integrate the reports from the Bellevue police, the reports of crashes from Washington State DOT, and the reports of crashes from Waze, sort of putting these different pieces of the puzzle together to really get a view of where a crash is occurring in the city of Bellevue and help them guide their Vision Zero investments that they were making with that time of day information, of course, as well. A little bit about our Beacons and Crisis program. So the Beacons program, we're in 22 cities mostly around the world. You can install these beacons. It's the one program we have that has some cost to it, but we're literally, you see the invoices. We pass the cost of these beacons directly on to you from the manufacturer. They're open source, so they don't just work with Waze. They use Bluetooth, and what they do is they provide a GPS connectivity through a tunnel or other structure that might not have that connectivity. It's great for users, and it can also be great for operators in that it gives you just one more layer of visibility into what's going on inside that structure. Our crisis program is something that we are very proud of, and you don't have to be an official partner to participate in. During times of crisis, whether that is a natural disaster or it's a major infrastructure failure, we are here to help you make sure that you are accurately communicating with your citizens. So whether it's a fire or a tornado, you might have road closures that you need put in place, where we have a team that's available 24/7 that you can just email, and they will get those closures on the map right away, helping to make things safer for drivers, safer for first responders. If you have a situation where you might have preordained evacuation zones, we can work with you to get those loaded into the Waze map, and then upon your direction that an evacuation is occurring, we'll activate those zones, and those will do a few things. Most importantly, we won't route anyone through that zone. So even if they're taking a 1 or 2 hour time penalty, we will navigate them around that zone when it's in effect. If they're trying to navigate into the zone, we'll give them that big pop-up warning that you see on your screen saying, reminder here, you're driving into an evacuation zone. Use extreme caution. Are you sure you want to do it? We still allow people to, and we'll give them directions in. They may be going to evacuate somebody, but we make sure that they know that where they're going is an evacuation zone. And then post-event, all the way through the recovery period, you can preload emergency shelter and emergency service information with us, and we can activate that as part of it, or you can do it as that develops, so drivers can navigate to those sites, put in information about those sites, about hours of service and offerings. And then we've even worked with FEMA post-disaster when they've had, we've worked with them particularly in the case of wildfires, where you've had an entire county affected, where essentially, almost every resident of that county is eligible for some kind of FEMA assistance. We've pushed notifications to our users in that county to make sure that they're aware of the FEMA assistance and how to apply for it. So what we ask for our public partners is that they sign up for our programs. You select a project owner on your team. You onboard and learn our tools, and it's easier than ever before. We've launched a new partner hub that makes it really easy to access all of these tools, and that you share your stories with us, so we can put you into a case study and let other people know about the great work that we're doing together. And so just sort of the quick reminder on this, you get all this real-time data to help you manage mobility. You get access to that historical and current data to help do operations and planning. And you have a platform to communicate with drivers across your jurisdiction. One of my favorite quotes about the program comes from the TMC director for MassDOT in Massachusetts, who describes Waze as a traveler information megaphone. And that's really what we are. When you're putting information into Waze, you know you're reaching drivers at a time that it's relevant for them. So I'll stop here and very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. So do we have any questions here? Please feel free to post in the chat or use the Q&A option. Let's give them a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we'll give them a couple of minutes. And while folks are thinking of questions, I'll answer one of the oh, here we go. Here we have one. How does it work if several agencies are involved with the program at the same time? So Overland Park, Kansas, and Casey Scout are as well. So it's fine that we have overlapping jurisdictions, right? Because you all may be wanting to pull data from us and use it for your own purposes. For reporting purposes, we do have the ability to dedupe information if it's coming in, but we also have MPOs can often serve or the state DOT, but MPOs in particular as a consolidating function, so people can send their feeds through that MPO and make sure the data is appearing on Waze. The program does not cost anything. This is an entirely free program. Our revenue model is based on advertising to people who use Waze. And so we have no plans to ever try to monetize this data sharing. It's a great question about calibrating and validating the travel demand models. So right now, we don't offer origin and destination data, which would obviously be helpful for that kind of model calibration. We are going to be kicking off a pilot soon with the Ministry of Transportation in Israel to take a look at our O&D data. One of the things that we're looking in that pilot to do is validate sort of just how valuable our users are to informing models like that, right? Because obviously, our users are not representative of all trips. It's representative of a certain slice of auto trips that are occurring. So I think once that comes out, it's going to be, we're gonna have a lot more information on its use. I will say PennDOT in Pennsylvania has done some really interesting work using both Waze and INRIX data. And they're not alone in terms of using Waze and INRIX data or Waze and Here data. Other folks have used, and then adding obviously your own data sources internally that you might have to do all different kinds of projects. So PennDOT has used it for revenue modeling to try to sort of figure out post-COVID what miles driven might look like. They've used it for our safety data and our congestion data to help in a decision-making framework for where they should be making certain kinds of investments. So it's been used in different kinds of modeling exercises. This question about the interface with voice reporting. So I won't go into all the details, but you should make sure that you're using Google Assistant, right? So you have to be using Google Assistant or Siri in order to be able to do the voice reporting. And we also have, excellent, if you go to within the app, if you find the help section, we have some really good guidance on how to make sure that's activated. Does Waze collect any information like driver behavior, or is it strictly reporting? So it is strictly reporting. We don't have telematic data in Waze. That's probably the number one request that we're getting, that we get from some agencies. So we don't have any of that. We don't have any of that data. Another question here. I see great advantage to the feed information to Waze to enhance the user experience. However, please recap the agency gains, possibly a notice of a crash they might not know of. Yep. So it is for the agency, I would say there are a few different gains that you get. So one, you get all sorts of information from our users what's happening on the road. So probably the most impactful information is information about crashes. Kentucky Transportation Cabinet's probably one of the top users of this information in the country. They have alerts set up in their TMC. So when a crash is reported on Waze, it alerts an operator. If they have a camera, they can point a camera to it. They can also look at speed data, both from Waze and their own speed data. If you see a crash on a rural part of the interstate and you see, speeds have dropped down to 10 or 20 miles an hour, that's a serious crash. If you see that speeds are continuing at 40 or 50 miles an hour, maybe it's not such a serious event that's occurred, and you can deploy resources based on that. It can help you identify when there are objects in the road, other kinds of hazards. So there's that important gain operationally for agencies, and then also I think certainly a gain that's available from being able to look at that data on a retrospective basis for planning exercises. And then lastly, I think there's a really important traveler information gain here, right? Waze has 30 million users in the United States. I didn't pull up our monthly active stats for any of the states here, but maybe I can try to do that a little bit later on. But chances are we have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of daily active users where you are. Obviously, not if you're a small town, but on a statewide basis. And there are few ways to be able to communicate information that you have, whether that's about a closure or an incident that's occurring on the road. We're going to be in the next year be able to accept WZDX compliant feeds, and we're going to be able to provide lane closure information as well. So really being able to communicate directly to drivers. And we're going to be launching audible alerts in the next year. So you'll get information. It almost becomes personalized highway advisory radio. Left lane closed ahead for construction, for maintenance, for a crash, shift right or keep right. So we'll be able to provide that kind of information and really communicate directly to your users what's going on the road. So we do not support trucks or commercial vehicles at all. We are an app that is exclusively for use by drivers of cars and motorcycles. And so we, while we do provide options to avoid tolls, avoid highways, we have a default option that avoids dirt roads. That's automatically set in the, and I know could be certainly relevant in your part of the country. It's the default option in Waze. We don't do any kind of routing for commercial vehicles. Great question here about we're not representative of the overall population. In what ways is the sample skewed? I think generally speaking, we have an urban skew, right? So we are an app that's most valuable in a lot of ways when you have lots of options about the way you can go and you're trying to avoid congestion. So we certainly have a skew in our data towards urban areas, and we have somewhat of a skew also towards commuting hours in our data. That said, we do have a lot of users, and they're almost everywhere. And so while there's some bias in that data, obviously, we can provide a pretty good picture of what's going on. And I'm also happy, sort of personally, if you have specific questions, while we can't share the numbers directly, I can give you a very good sense of how many daily active users we have in the area that you are interested in. So you can get an idea of, is that sample size a size that's relevant? Okay, let's see here. How does an agency get started? What are the steps? So let me actually share my screen again. I'll actually just very quickly show you some things here.
Andrew, you are muted again.
Sorry, and then I bounced out on you all. I'm back. This is the share screen issue. Hold on a second. There we go. So you simply click apply now. Oh, it's brought me in here, but let me log out. Just create new account, and then you put in your work email. It'll take you through a series of very simple steps. You'll insert some information, and you can online accept the terms of service that we have. I know sometimes this can feel like a challenge for public agencies, and I'll let you know that our terms of service are non-negotiable. It's a cost-free product, so we're not able to put any legal resources behind it. What I will say is we have 500 partners in the United States, cities, towns, MPOs, state 40 plus of the 50 state DOTs in the United States have all accepted our terms of service. And ultimately, they are written very much with the public sector in mind. And so typically they can be found to be acceptable to your legal departments and risk management departments. Ultimately here, the risk of partnership is, de minimis working with us. And also either of us can cancel a partnership at any time with 30 days notice. So it's something that lots of partners have been able to agree to. And then when you join the program, you get access to our partner hub. And I will give you just a little sense of kind of what that looks like. Let's stop sharing. Okay, and can you see the partner hub now? No, it doesn't look like it. All right, I'm gonna stop and reshare. Okay, so here you see our partner hub. And I'll just give you a quick kind of overview of the offerings here. So the data feed. So this is my sort of like playground in Waze. What you would have is a polygon that describes your area. So for instance, here we have a polygon that covers Houston, and you can get that as a JSON feed or as an XML feed and ingest that or integrate it into your TMC. If you have a TMC that's run or integrated by any of the big consulting firms, they all have experience doing this. If you're an Esri organization, once you've become a member, you can then access through Esri for free a layer that will provide you all of the information on your existing Esri dashboards, on your existing Esri screens. We have this wonderful tool called Traffic View. So right now, this is my hometown, Philadelphia. You get a very quick view. This you can also receive as a feed. So if you wanted to look at it using our screen or integrate it into your own, it works either way. And with Traffic View, you get this quick, view of how traffic is moving. We can see right now in Philadelphia, 1% of the traffic is moving at a total standstill. Largely working pretty well. We highlight any unusual traffic that's going on. So you see there's some utility work going on in a few places. If you zero in here, we can see different incidents that are occurring. Let's see what this one is. So there was a pothole reported on Ridge Avenue, reported by 2 Wazers just a little more than an hour ago, and it already has 4 thumbs up. You have, let's see, a car stopped on the side of the road 43 minutes ago on I-95 with 32 thumbs up. If you're in the PennDOT District 6 Operations Center and you see this, you might want to turn the CCTV camera, see what's there going on, maybe deploy the State Farm support vehicle out to help whoever's stopped on the side of the road there. It's a good opportunity to also talk about a question that often comes up is like, how valid, right, is this user data that's coming in? What you get with all of the reports is 2 scores with it. One is a confidence score and one is a reliability score. The confidence score is how confident we are at the report. It's based on how many users have reported it and how many thumbs up it's gotten. The higher the confidence score, the more confident that incident is on the road. The reliability score is a score that reflects the reliability of that individual reporter. So the first day you download Waze, you start reporting something, you're gonna have a 0 reliability score. We don't know how good you are as a reporter. You've been reporting with us for years. People are always thumbs upping your reports. The first time you put a report on, no one may have liked it yet. It may have a medium confidence score, but the reliability score is going to be a 10 because we know when the killer reports, that incident has happened. And so what agencies often do is they can sort or filter by those confidence and reliability scores. So you can only look at what you're most certain is going on the road. And there are very few false reports that come into Waze. And last but certainly not least, with the Traffic View tool, and this is, I think, one of the things that can be most exciting traffic engineers with this tool is that you can set up to 200 routes. Those can be as small as the block level, right? So here's 2 blocks of a residential grid street here in Philadelphia. We can see that traffic is free flowing on it. Based on our reports, it's going at just about 9 miles an hour. Usually goes at about 12 miles an hour. Nice slow neighborhood street here. You can also set up to monitor an entire route, right? So this is a route. What's the fastest way to get from City Hall down to the Eagles and Phillies stadiums? Well, it's to drive down Market Street right now and jump on I-95 and get off at Broad Street and go up to the stadiums. Major crash on I-95, it's probably going to be to drive down Broad Street, and we'll alert you to that if you have this kind of route set up. So all sorts of great things you can do with that kind of data from a planning perspective and from an operational perspective. And then let me just show you back here in our toolbox one other thing. If you're set up so you have the Google Cloud data, this is where you access that historic data, and then really easy to provide us with a feed, right? So you have a JSON or XML feed of closures in your jurisdiction, or hazards or accidents you're operating, that kind of system. Simple as clicking new feed here. We can also, if you have live GPS data about snow plows and garbage trucks and you want that to appear on the map, we can do that as well. We have a feed format that we like called KIFS version 2, but we can also take custom feeds. So you just click the appropriate button and then you add a URL. You can encrypt it, give it a username and password protection, and then we'll work with you to make sure that that information is appearing to Waze users and you're communicating it directly to them. So I'll pause there and see if there are any more questions.
Yep, I think we do have one more question. So can you find out how many users are using Waze in a specific city or region by home address, for example?
No, so you're not going to be able to find it by home address. We can give you that data at the county-wide level about how many users there are. One of the things that we're piloting in Israel with the Ministry of Transportation is just how granular we're going to get. So we have, one of the things I tell people often is I feel much better about my privacy now that I work at Google than before I worked at Google. So everything has to go through very strict privacy reviews to make sure that we're anonymizing data. So particularly so that our data can't be then, if we're externalizing it, can't then be paired with other publicly available data sources to be able to track individual users. So we're definitely not going to be able to provide it at the home address data. I think something we're probably going to explore in the U.S. context is at the TAZ level, maybe at a census block or census tract at a census tract level, or perhaps even just being able, if we're able to do something around O&D, you know, at a square mile level or something like that. But we're going to have to really work through a lot of privacy issues around that.
And we have one more question in the Q&A, which is, how is Waze funded?
How is Waze funded, right? So we're entirely based on advertising revenue. So if you use Waze, you'll see those ads that pop up, pins come up on the map, and that's what generates revenue for us. So everything we have, you know, big advertisers, big global advertisers like McDonald's, who advertise with us, automotive companies, insurance companies. And then we also have a great self-service program for mom and pop brick and mortar shops to make sure that they're appearing on our map and they're appearing to drivers who are going by and might be particularly interested in their business.
And I think we have one more question. So are there any agencies who have ended up not joining the service due to the legal or liability concerns? Yeah,
so I don't know any on the liability front. I mean, most of our, we've had a few who have they haven't been able to get the terms of service approved through their legal departments, but it's really very few, and particularly when you're able to point to all of the other agencies that have signed these agreements, and our agreement is very sensitive to the common concerns that the public sector has around signing terms of service agreements. And if I don't know where Dustin's from, but if there are, you know, for instance, if you are a town or a county and your county solicitor is having lots of anxiety about approving this agreement, let me know and I can provide you a list of other counties in your jurisdiction that have signed the agreement. That often really helps with that kind of comfort level. You know, you're an MPO, I can provide you other MPOs that have signed our terms.
Great. Any more questions? We have 5 minutes more. So Dustin is from City of Lawrence, Douglas County. Okay, seeing no more questions. If you're interested in watching this webinar or missed some points, which Andrew have mentioned, we do have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe for it. We'll post the, this video in the channel, and feel free to reach out to Andrew anytime, or me. I can give you the Andrew's information. So yeah, and
Yep.
we hopefully see you in next month. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for all of you for joining the call and spending the time, and everyone stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.